Sign here, Rob, and finally get rid of you forever, said Jennifer, my wife of 8 years, as she pushed the divorce papers across the polished mahogany desk. Standing next to her, Derek, my former best friend and now her lover, held her hand and smiled with that look of superiority I knew so well. They laughed. A loud, cruel laugh that echoed through the lawyer's office as if they had just told the funniest joke in the world. Finally free of this loser, Derek whispered in her ear, loud enough for me to hear. Now we can start our real life, without having to pretend he matters. Jennifer nodded, her eyes shining with a malice I had never seen before. 8 years wasted. At least now I'll get half of everything you have. Which isn't much, considering you never got a decent job. I kept my face neutral as I picked up the pen. Her lawyer, a burly man named Richardson, watched me with barely concealed contempt. My name is Rob, I'm 35 years old, and at that moment, as I signed my name on the papers that officially ended my marriage, I was seen by everyone in the room as a complete failure. Unemployed for 2 years. Living in the house that belonged to Jennifer's parents. Driving a used car that Derek always mocked as an old clunker. Wearing clothes that Jennifer bought on sale, always complaining about how much I cost her. There, said Jennifer, snatching the papers from my hands as soon as I finished signing. Now we just have to wait for the judge to make it official. I can't wait to get my share of his assets. She made air quotes when she said assets, prompting another round of laughter from her and Derek. Richardson efficiently organized the documents. The hearing is scheduled for next Tuesday. It will be a mere formality, considering that both parties have agreed to the terms. I got up from my chair, adjusted my cheap jacket, and walked toward the door. I could feel her eyes following me, probably savoring every second of my humiliation. Rob, Jennifer called after me as I was about to leave. When the judge asks about your assets, at least try to sound like you have something of value. It would be embarrassing if you admitted you have absolutely nothing. Derek laughed. Maybe he can declare that collection of old comic books he keeps hidden in the basement. I stopped at the door, my hand on the knob. For a second, I almost turned around to say something. But I didn't. Instead, I just smiled. A small, almost imperceptible smile that none of them could interpret. Because there was something Jennifer and Derek didn't know. Something they would find out next Tuesday when the judge began reading aloud the complete inventory of my assets. Something that would turn those cruel laughs into an expression of absolute shock. As I walked down the hallway of the law firm, I thought about how I had carefully crafted the image of the failed husband over the past 2 years. Every lost job, every wasted opportunity, every moment of incompetence had been meticulously planned. If you're enjoying this underdog story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to find out how an underestimated man is about to deliver the most epic lesson of her life. Because next Tuesday, when that gavel hits the courtroom table, Jennifer will discover that she has just made the biggest mistake of her life. The following Tuesday arrived with a light rain that perfectly mirrored my apparent mood. I arrived at the courthouse in my old 2003 Honda Civic, the same one Derek always called a piece of junk. I wore my best suit, the one Jennifer had bought on sale 3 years ago, always reminding me of the discount she got. Jennifer and Derek arrived in a shiny silver BMW. She was wearing a red dress that cost more than I earned in 2 months at my odd jobs. Derek, in his Italian-tailored suit and Rolex watch, walked beside her as if he owned the world. "Look who's here," Derek muttered loud enough for me to hear. "The great Rob, punctual as always. At least you're still reliable in that regard." Jennifer laughed, that crystal-clear laugh that used to melt me, now transformed into pure cruelty. "Honey, don't be so hard on him. After all, today is the day he officially loses the last thing of value in his life, half of our assets. Which, let's be honest, isn't much." They didn't know I was recording. A small device I had installed in the pocket of my cheap jacket. Every cruel word, every disparaging comment, every moment of humiliation being documented. Richardson, Jennifer's lawyer, was particularly animated. "Mr. Rob," he said, organizing an impressive stack of papers, "I hope you've prepared your statement of assets properly. Although, considering your current financial situation, I imagine it's a pretty straightforward document." The financial situation he was referring to was carefully constructed. For 2 years, since I discovered the messages between Jennifer and Derek on her phone, I had meticulously crafted the image of the failed husband. Every job lost due to incompetence, Every opportunity wasted due to lack of initiative, every moment of stupidity had been an Oscar-worthy performance. Derek, do you remember that time Rob tried to sell insurance? Jennifer was telling the lawyer, as if I wasn't there. He managed to lose more customers than he gained. His boss said he'd never seen anyone so incompetent at sales. Derek nodded, savoring every word. And when he tried to be a driver for a ride-sharing app, he managed to crash his car in the first week, right at the gate of his house. They laughed together, a symphony of cruelty that echoed through the courtroom. Other couples waiting for their hearings looked at us with a mixture of pity and discomfort. What they didn't know was that accident had been carefully orchestrated. Just like the firing from the insurance company, where I had purposely sabotaged my own sales. Each apparent failure was actually another brick in the construction of my facade. Jennifer, I called her softly. She turned, eyebrows arched in irritation at being interrupted. Can I talk to you for a moment? In private. Derek immediately positioned himself protectively beside her. Whatever you have to say to her, you can say in front of me. We're a couple now. A couple. The words hit me exactly as he intended. 2 years ago, discovering those passionate messages between my wife and my best friend since college had been devastating. Messages that detailed not only their physical affair, but also her elaborate plans to destroy me financially before leaving me. You don't need privacy, Rob, Jennifer said, her voice dripping with condescension. After all, after today, we won't have anything to talk about in private. Derek is my future. You're just my inconvenient past. During our conversation, the courtroom began to fill up. Other couples, lawyers, court clerks, all unwitting witnesses to what was about to happen. Your Honor is ready to receive you, announced the clerk, a middle-aged woman with thick glasses. We entered the courtroom. Judge Morrison was known for her efficiency and impartiality. A woman in her 60s, she had gray hair pulled back into a neat bun and eyes that seemed to see through any attempt at manipulation. Good morning, she said, her voice echoing in the room. We are here today to finalize the divorce between Jennifer Catherine Williams and Robert James Williams. I understand that both parties have reached an agreement on the division of property. Richardson stood up immediately. Yes, Your Honor. My client has agreed to divide all marital property equally with the defendant. The judge flipped through the documents. Very well. Mr. Williams, do you confirm that you agree to the terms presented? I stood up slowly. I do, Your Honor. Jennifer and Derek exchanged satisfied glances. Derek even whispered something in her ear that made her stifle a giggle. Perfect, said Judge Morrison. Now, we need to review the complete inventory of marital assets to finalize the division. Mr. Williams, please present your statement of assets. It was at that moment that I opened my worn leather briefcase, a briefcase Jennifer always teased me about, saying it looked like it had survived World War II. I handed the clerk a sealed envelope. Jennifer was clearly bored, staring at her red-painted fingernails. Derek was checking his phone. Richardson was scribbling something on his notepad, probably calculating his fees. Judge Morrison opened the envelope and began to read silently. Her eyebrows arched. Then they furrowed. Then she stopped completely and looked at me over her glasses. Mr. Williams, she said slowly, I would like you to confirm this information. And that's when the smile began to fade from Jennifer's face. Mr. Williams, Judge Morrison repeated, her voice now carrying a tone of barely concealed disbelief. Is this information correct? I would like you to confirm each item listed on your statement of assets. Jennifer frowned, finally paying attention. Derek stopped fiddling with his phone. Richardson put down his pen and looked in our direction with growing curiosity. Yes, Your Honor, I replied calmly. All of the information has been verified and is accompanied by the appropriate documentation. The judge began reading aloud, and it was like watching an explosion in slow motion. Asset Disclosure Statement of Robert James Williams. Item 1. Ownership of 85% of the shares of Williams Digital Solutions, valued at, she paused, looking back at the document, $42 million. Jennifer jumped up from her chair. That's a mistake. That has to be a mistake. Please remain seated, the judge instructed firmly. Item 2. Real estate holdings. Primary residence in Malibu, valued at $8.5 million. Apartment in Manhattan, $3.2 million. Country home in Aspen, $2.8 million. Derek's face had drained of all color. Jennifer was holding onto the table as if she were about to faint. "That's impossible," she whispered, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "He lives in my parents' house. He drives an old Honda. He doesn't have a job." Richardson tried to stand up. "Your Honor, there must be some mistake in the documentation." Item 3, the judge continued relentlessly, bank accounts and investments. Main account at Chase Manhattan, $19.3 million. Investment portfolio managed by Goldman Sachs, $27.8 million. Cryptocurrencies, $12.1 million. Jennifer began to shake visibly. Derek was looking at me as if I were a ghost. "Rob," Jennifer called out to me, her voice high-pitched and desperate. "What's going on? Where did these numbers come from? You have nothing. You're a failure." That's when I slowly stood up and looked her straight in the eye. "Actually, Jennifer, I have much more than you could ever imagine. The difference is that I've always known exactly who you are." I pulled out my phone and played a recording. Jennifer's voice echoed through the room. "Derek, honey, did you see how easy it was to manipulate Rob? He really believes I'm happy with him. When we finalize the divorce, I'll get half of everything, and we can finally be together." The recording continued with Derek's cruel laughter. "Poor idiot. He has no idea we've been planning this for 2 years. It's almost criminal how easy it was to make him think he was going broke." Jennifer was now visibly panicking. Where did you get this? You've been spying on us." Item 4, the judge continued, ignoring the interruption. Vehicles. McLaren 720S, valued at $300,000. Tesla Model S Plaid, $150,000. 50-foot Sunseeker yacht, $2.3 million. Derek finally found his voice. "Rob, man, I don't understand. You were living in your in-laws' basement. You lost your job at the insurance company. I never worked for an insurance company," I replied calmly. "I built a digital solutions company that now serves Fortune 500 companies. The insurance company was just a rented office where I went to pretend to work every day while running my business remotely." The revelation hit the room like a tsunami. Jennifer was now leaning on the table, breathing heavily. "The cars," she whispered, "the cars are where?" "Private garage in Beverly Hills. The Honda I was driving? Rented specifically to maintain the facade. Just like the cheap clothes, the lost jobs, the wasted opportunities." Richardson was now clearly in damage control mode. "Your Honor, we request a recess to review this documentation. There are clearly issues of fraud here." "There is no fraud," I interrupted, handing another envelope to the clerk. "Just a very thorough investigation. A private investigator hired 2 years ago, when I discovered the first messages between my wife and my best friend. Recordings, photographs, detailed bank statements from secret accounts. All perfectly legal." Jennifer was now crying, but not tears of sadness. Tears of pure anger and despair. You deceived us. You pretended to be poor. You lied about everything. Just like you lied about loving me while you planned to destroy me." My voice remained calm, controlled. "The difference is that you wanted to steal from me. I just protected what was mine." Derek tried a different approach. "Man, we've been friends since college. You really hated me that much too." Item 5, the judge interrupted, clearly fascinated by the drama unfolding. Subsidiaries and holdings. 20% of TechFlow Industries, valued at $15 million. 35% of Startup Launch Incubator, $8.7 million. Jennifer was now hyperventilating. "Half. I'm still getting half of all that. It's the law. We've been married for 8 years." That's when I smiled for the first time during the entire hearing. "Actually, Jennifer, you're getting exactly 0. Richardson stood up abruptly. "This is inadmissible. The laws of marital property in the state of California." Item 6, the judge continued, her own curiosity now clearly piqued. Prenuptial agreements and additional documentation. I handed her the third envelope. "Your Honor will find therein the prenuptial agreement signed by Jennifer 3 days prior to our marriage. An agreement that clearly specifies that in the event of proven adultery on her part, she waives any claim to my pre- and postmarital assets. The silence in the room was deafening. Jennifer looked at Richardson in despair. I never signed that. I've never seen that document in my life. I played another recording on my phone. Jennifer's younger voice echoed through the room. Of course I'll sign it, honey. I trust you completely. Besides, I would never do anything to hurt our marriage. Derek was now visibly panicked. Jennifer, you told me there was no prenup. I forgot. It was 8 years ago. How was I supposed to remember every piece of paper I signed? Especially when you were planning to break the terms from the beginning, I observed calmly. Judge Morrison flipped through the prenuptial agreement, her eyebrows arching with each page. This document is duly notarized, with acknowledgement of signature and signed by both parties. Mr. Richardson, is your client aware of this agreement? Richardson was now clearly out of his element. Your Honor, we request time to review. There is no time, the judge declared. This is a valid legal document. And based on the evidence of adultery presented, she looked at me. I assume there is more. I smiled again and handed her the fourth envelope. Inside were photographs, printed text messages, hotel records, credit card records, detailed reports from the private investigator. 2 years of meticulous documentation. Jennifer and Derek in compromising situations. Planning my financial ruin. Laughing at my supposed naivety. Every secret meeting. Every lie. Every moment of betrayal, carefully catalogued and preserved. My God, Derek whispered, looking at the photographs now passing through the judge's hands. Jennifer was in complete shock. You followed us for 2 years? I hired professionals. And they did an exemplary job. The judge closed the folder with a sharp click that echoed around the room. Based on the documentation presented, it is clear that there has been extensive and proven adultery. The prenuptial agreement is valid and will be upheld. Jennifer finally exploded. This isn't fair. You deceived me. You pretended to be someone else for our entire marriage. I pretended to be poor to protect my assets from a wife I discovered was planning to rob me. You pretended to love me while you planned to betray and destroy me. Who's the real deceiver here? Derek tried one last card. Rob, man, we can talk about this like adults. It doesn't have to be this way. We can work something out. Oh, we'll work something out, I replied, my voice finally carrying a note of cold satisfaction. But it won't be the kind of deal you're hoping for. That's when I handed the fifth and final envelope to the judge. And that's when Jennifer and Derek realized that the real storm was just beginning. Judge Morrison opened the fifth envelope with the same professional thoroughness she had shown with the previous ones. But when her eyes scanned the first document, her expression changed completely. Mr. Williams, she said slowly, is this a civil suit for emotional distress and conspiracy to commit marriage fraud? Jennifer and Derek looked at each other, panic now visible on their faces. Yes, Your Honor. My attorneys at Morrison, Blake & Associates have prepared a comprehensive action against both defendants. Richardson tried to stand. This is absurd. There is no legal basis for. There are 3 years of detailed documentation, I interrupted calmly. Conspiracy to commit marital fraud. Intentional defamation. Sabotage of professional opportunities. Misappropriation of marital funds to finance the extramarital affair. The judge continued reading, her expression growing more serious with each page. Damages requested, $50 million in compensation for moral, financial, and professional damages. Jennifer was now visibly shaking. $50 million? Rob, you're out of your mind. We couldn't even sell everything we own and get that much. That's exactly the point, I replied. You have nothing. Derek, your consulting firm exists only on paper. The only income you've had in the last 2 years has come from loans Jennifer took from our joint account to finance her romantic encounters. Derek was now as pale as a sheet. When did you find out about the company? 18 months ago. Just as I found out that Jennifer was stealing money from the account I thought was for family emergencies to pay for her luxury hotels and romantic dinners. Jennifer began to cry, but these weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of pure desperation. The judge leafed through more documents. Mr. Williams, I also see here a request for a criminal investigation for embezzlement. That's right. $23,000 embezzled over 2 years. Every transaction documented, every lie about the destination of the money recorded in phone conversations. Derek finally exploded. Rob, man, you're destroying our lives. Why? Because of a divorce? People get divorced every day. It wasn't the divorce, Derek. It was the way you planned to humiliate me, destroy me financially, and laugh in my face while you did it. I played another recording on my phone. Derek's voice echoed through the room. The idiot has no idea we're bankrupting him while we plan our escape to Miami. When he finds out, we'll be long gone with his money. Jennifer's cruel laughter completed the recording. He deserves it. 8 years married to a loser. Finally, I'll be able to live the life I deserve. The silence in the room was deafening. You wanted to see me broken and humiliated, I continued, my voice now carrying the weight of the last 2 years. So I let you think you had me. Every lost job, every wasted opportunity, every moment of supposed incompetence was carefully orchestrated to make you feel secure enough to reveal your true plans. Jennifer was now sobbing uncontrollably. Rob, please. We can talk about this. We can work something out. I made mistakes, but you don't deserve this. You don't deserve it? My voice rose for the first time during the entire hearing. You planned to rob me, humiliate me publicly, and you laughed in my face while you did it. What exactly don't I deserve? Derek tried a different approach. Rob, think about Jennifer as a person. You've had good years together. This can't end like this. The good years were a lie. I know that because I have records of her conversations since the 3rd year of our marriage. You've been together for 5 years, Derek. 5 years planning this. Judge Morrison organized all the documents on her desk. Based on all the evidence presented, I not only grant the divorce with the terms of the prenuptial agreement, but I also authorize the civil action to proceed. Richardson made one last desperate attempt. Your Honor, we ask for leniency. My client is clearly in an emotionally compromised state. Your client was in perfect emotional condition when she planned this fraud for years, the judge declared firmly. The hearing is adjourned. As everyone rose, Jennifer grabbed my arm. Rob, what do you want from us? Money? We don't have $50 million. I looked directly into her eyes, the same eyes that used to make me feel special, now filled with despair. I want you to feel exactly what you planned to make me feel. Broken, humiliated, and abandoned. Derek tried one last card. Rob, man, we've been friends since college. That has to count for something. It did. Until you decided it was more important to betray me than to be honest with me. That's when I turned to leave and Jennifer shouted, "You can't do this to us. We're going to fight this." I stopped at the door and smiled, not a cruel smile, but the smile of someone who had finally found peace. You can try. But just like for the past 2 years, you don't know half of what's really going on. If this epic twist has you hooked, subscribe to the channel to discover even more powerful stories of people who turned betrayal into triumph. Because what Jennifer and Derek didn't know yet was that the court hearing was only the first act of my plan. The real show was about to begin. 3 days after the hearing, I was in my real office, not Jennifer's parents' basement, but the entire floor I occupied in the financial center of Los Angeles. 40 employees, a panoramic view of the city, and a conference room where I was about to welcome some very special visitors. Jennifer and Derek arrived accompanied by a new lawyer, a man named Harrison who clearly cost more per hour than they had in their bank accounts. Rob, Jennifer began, trying to regain some control of the situation, we need to talk like civilized adults. This $50 million lawsuit, it's excessive. Derek was visibly nervous, sweating through his expensive suit. Man, we can work this out. You won. You proved your point. Now we can move on. I smiled and activated the tablet on the conference table. Actually, you're right. 50 million was excessive. A flash of relief crossed their faces. Because I found out a few more things since Tuesday. The tablet screen showed a PowerPoint presentation. The first slide read, Operation Parasite, a complete case study. Jennifer, do you remember your sister Amanda? Jennifer frowned. What does Amanda have to do with this? She works in the FBI's investigative department. Specializes in financial crimes. I moved on to the next slide. Interestingly, when I sent her the evidence of our marital situation, she discovered something fascinating. Derek was now visibly pale. Rob, what are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. I turned the tablet toward them. Derek, your shell consulting firm? It served as a money laundering front for 3 other companies. Companies that existed only on paper but received substantial government contracts. Harrison, the lawyer, tried to intervene. Mr. Williams, without concrete evidence. I have 17 gigabytes of evidence. Bank statements, email communications, international transfer records. I moved to another slide. Derek, did you really think you could use Jennifer as a partner in a tax fraud scheme and I would never find out? Jennifer stood up abruptly. Tax fraud? Derek, what is he talking about? Derek was now clearly panicking. Rob man, I can explain. No need to explain. The FBI has it all documented. I played an audio recording. Derek's voice echoed around the room. Jennifer is perfect for this. As Rob's wife, she can sign the documents without raising suspicion. And once we get rid of him, we'll have complete control of the scheme. Jennifer looked at Derek with growing horror. You used me for federal crimes? Jennifer, honey, let me explain. No, she interrupted him, her voice rising in pitch and volume. You told me it was just normal consulting. You made me sign papers saying they were for your company. I moved on to the next slide. Jennifer, your signatures appear on documents from 5 different companies. Companies that defrauded the federal government of approximately $8.3 million. Harrison was now frantically taking notes. Mr. Williams, I assume you're recording this conversation? Of course. Just as I've recorded all of our conversations for the past 2 years. I smiled. Including the one where Derek explained to Jennifer how to use my supposed incompetence as an alibi for his activities. Derek finally exploded. Rob, you son of a bitch. You set us up. You knew all along. I suspected as much. But you confirmed every suspicion with your own actions. I stood up and walked over to the window. Derek, did you really think I would believe you started a consulting firm out of thin air? No real clients, no tangible product, but magically profitable. Jennifer was now crying, but not tears of sadness. Tears of pure anger directed at Derek. You told me it was just to get money to start our life together. You never mentioned federal fraud. Jennifer, please let me. No. She turned to me. Rob, I swear I didn't know about the crimes. I thought it was just normal betrayal. Normal betrayal. I repeated the words slowly. Interesting how that sounds when you say it out loud. Harrison tried to control the situation. Mr. Williams, what exactly do you want? I returned to my chair and opened a leather briefcase. I want complete justice. Derek will turn himself in to the FBI this afternoon. Jennifer will cooperate fully with the federal investigation. And both will accept the division of assets as outlined in the prenuptial agreement. Derek stood up violently. That's blackmail. No, Derek. Blackmail would be if I threatened to expose crimes you didn't commit. This is just accountability. Jennifer looked at Derek with a mixture of disgust and terror. How many years in prison? For federal fraud of this magnitude? Derek is looking at 15 to 20 years. You, as a cooperating witness and victim of manipulation, probably 3 to 5. Derek was now in full panic mode. Rob man, we can work this out. I have information on other people. I can help the FBI with bigger cases. I'm sure you can. And you should. I closed the folder. The point is, that doesn't change the fact that you tried to destroy me financially and emotionally while committing federal crimes. Jennifer was now sobbing uncontrollably. Rob, I'm so sorry. I'm really sorry. For the first time in 2 years, I felt a twinge of something that could be called pity. But only a twinge. Jennifer, you're sorry you got caught. There's a difference. Harrison made one last attempt. Mr. Williams, Surely we can work out some kind of agreement. The agreement is simple. Derek turns himself in today. Jennifer cooperates fully. And both of them get out of my life forever. I paused. The alternative is I hand over all the evidence directly to the FBI and let them decide how to proceed. Derek was now clearly desperate. Rob, we were friends. Does that mean anything? It did. Until you decided it was more important to betray me, use my wife to commit federal crimes, and laugh in my face while you did it. That was when my assistant entered the room. Mr. Williams, the FBI agents are here. Jennifer and Derek looked at each other in total panic. You called them? Jennifer whispered. I didn't call them. I smiled one last time. They're here because Derek tried to transfer $2.3 million to an account in the Cayman Islands last night. The FBI monitors that kind of activity. Derek was now visibly shaking. How did you know? Because I've had access to your company's bank statements for the past 6 months. And I set up alerts for any international transfer attempts. The door opened and 2 federal agents entered the room. Derek Morrison? Jennifer Williams? You are under arrest on suspicion of federal fraud, money laundering, and tax evasion. As the handcuffs were being put on, Jennifer looked at me one last time. You planned all this from the beginning. No, I replied calmly. I just prepared for all possibilities. You chose the worst one. As they were led away by the agents, Derek shouted one last time, Rob, you can't do this to us. But I had already turned away, looking out the window at the city stretching below. The real lesson was just beginning. 6 months later, I was in the same office where everything had been revealed, but now with a completely different perspective. The panoramic view of Los Angeles stretched out before me, but it wasn't the skyscrapers that impressed me. It was the realization that I had survived the most devastating storm of my life and emerged not only intact, but fundamentally transformed. Derek had been sentenced to 18 years in federal prison for fraud, money laundering, and tax evasion. The judge was particularly harsh when he discovered that he had manipulated Jennifer as a front to hide his criminal activities. During sentencing, Derek attempted one last desperate performance, claiming that he had been influenced by extreme financial pressures, and that his actions did not represent his true character. The federal judge, a man named Harrison with 30 years of banking experience, looked at Derek with a kind of contempt reserved for criminals who insult the intelligence of the court. Mr. Morrison, he said, your actions demonstrate a pattern of calculated manipulation that has spanned years. You have not only committed federal crimes, but you have used close personal relationships as tools to perpetuate your fraud. This court finds your conduct particularly despicable. Jennifer received 4 years, with a possibility of parole in 2, largely because she cooperated fully with the federal investigation. Her testimony helped the FBI uncover a web of corruption that spanned 3 states and involved 12 other people in positions of trust. During her own trial, Jennifer did something that surprised me. She asked to testify about how she had been manipulated, not to reduce her own sentence, but to help other women who might be being used in the same way. I chose to betray my husband, she said in court, her voice breaking. No one forced me to do it. But Derek convinced me that Rob was weak, incompetent, and that we deserved a better life. He made me believe that signing those documents was just part of a legitimate business deal. Watching her testify was complex. Part of me felt satisfaction seeing her face the consequences. Another part recognized that she too had been a victim of Derek's manipulation, even if she had chosen to betray me first. The most profound transformation, however, had happened to me. For 2 years, while pretending to be a failed husband, I discovered something about myself that I had never realized. I was capable of a patience and strategic determination that bordered on the supernatural. Mr. Williams, my assistant Sarah, entered the room with a folder. The documentation for the agreement with the federal government has arrived. They have confirmed that you will receive 80% of the refunded funds. The $2.3 million that Derek had tried to hide in the Cayman Islands was now being returned to the federal coffers, and I would receive a substantial reward for providing the information that led to the discovery of the entire criminal network. And the other issue? I asked. Jennifer has signed a complete waiver of any future claim to his assets. She has also agreed to the permanent restraining order. And there's one more thing, Sarah hesitated. She left a personal letter. During the trial, Jennifer had attempted a last-ditch maneuver through her lawyer, claiming that our separation had been manipulative and that I owed her some compensation for emotional trauma caused by my concealment. The judge rejected the request immediately when I reviewed 2 years of recordings of her and Derek systematically plotting to rob and humiliate me. I took Sarah's letter but didn't open it right away. I knew it would be full of excuses and reflections on regret. Over the past few months, I had received 3 similar letters, each more desperate than the last. My phone rang. It was Amanda, Jennifer's sister who worked for the FBI. "Rob, I just wanted to thank you personally once again. Your case helped uncover an operation that had been active for almost 5 years. 3 shell consulting firms, dozens of fraudulent contracts, over $15 million in damages to the federal government. The investigation revealed corruption at the state level. It was a pleasure to help the justice system, Amanda." "And about Jennifer," she hesitated. "I know you were married, but I need to say this. During the investigation, it became clear that she didn't really understand the extent of Derek's crimes. He manipulated her just as much as he manipulated you, just in a different way." It was true. During the extensive investigation, it became crystal clear that Derek had used Jennifer as a pawn without her fully understanding the criminal scheme. She thought she was just helping with normal business paperwork and legitimate investment opportunities. But that didn't change the fundamental fact that she had chosen to betray me, systematically humiliate me, and try to steal from me. Derek's manipulation explained the federal crimes, not the marital betrayal. Amanda, I don't hold any grudges against her. But I also don't feel responsible for her choices. I understand completely. And Rob, she asked me to tell you that she is truly sorry. Not just for getting caught, but for what she did to you as a person. She said she lost so much more than money or her freedom. She lost the chance to know who you really are. I hung up the phone and finally opened Jennifer's letter. It was different from the previous ones. Shorter, more direct, without the elaborate justifications or pleas for forgiveness that characterized the others. "Rob, I don't expect forgiveness or a response. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand the difference between regret for consequences and regret for actions. During our investigation, I discovered who you really were, not just financially, but as a person. Someone capable of strategy, patience, and principles I never recognized. You deserved honesty from the start. I deeply regret not being the person you deserved as a partner. Jennifer." I folded the letter and placed it in the drawer with the others. Not out of anger, but with the quiet understanding that some bridges, once burned, create space for entirely new constructions. Derek, on the other hand, never showed genuine remorse. Even during the trial, his apologies seemed more like frustration at being caught than regret for the victims he created. His letters from prison were full of self-pity and conspiracy theories about how the system had been unfair to him. The last one I received, 3 months ago, read, "Rob, you had no right to destroy my life like this. It was just business. You took it personal and ruined everything. Just business." As if betrayal, federal fraud, and attempted theft were normal business transactions. Today, 8 months after that eye-opening hearing, I wake up every morning in my new home in Monterey, overlooking the Pacific Ocean. A home I bought not to impress anyone, but because it brings me genuine peace and space for reflection. I used part of the proceeds from the sale of my company, which I sold for $120 million, not because I needed the money, but because I wanted a new life built on completely different foundations, to create something that gives me more satisfaction than any previous financial success. The Williams Foundation for Marital Justice had become much more than I had initially imagined. We had already helped more than 400 people properly document cases of marital betrayal and fraud, providing legal and investigative resources that most could not afford on their own. More importantly, we created a support network that goes beyond the legal aspect. We have therapists who specialize in betrayal, financial advisors who help people protect their assets before it's too late, and even private investigators who work at reduced rates for proven cases of need. The story that has struck me most recently was that of a woman named Patricia, 52 years old, whose husband of 25 years was systematically transferring her assets to accounts controlled by his mistress. Using the techniques and resources we've developed, we were able to not only stop the transfers, but also document the entire scheme. Her husband tried to use the same tactics Derek had used, claiming incompetence, setting up shell companies, manipulating financial records. But this time, the victim was prepared. Patricia not only protected her assets, but also discovered that he was using marital funds to finance 2 other simultaneous extramarital affairs. "Rob," she told me during our last conversation, "you didn't just help me save my money. You helped me save my dignity. For the first time in years, I feel like I have control over my own life." These stories constantly remind me that my experience with Jennifer and Derek wasn't just about personal revenge, but about exposing a systematic pattern of predators who take advantage of intimate trust for personal gain. My new life is built on absolute authenticity, not calculated performance. I drive the Tesla I've always wanted to drive, live in the house that brings me peace, wear clothes I choose because I like them, and maintain relationships only with people who demonstrate genuine character through consistent actions, not just words. The most powerful lesson I've learned wasn't about revenge or justice, but about the difference between reaction and response. For 2 years, I lived an elaborate lie to protect a greater truth. In the process, I discovered that I am capable of strategic sacrifice and emotional discipline that surprised me. Jennifer and Derek tried to destroy me because they interpreted my patience as weakness, my discretion as ignorance, my generosity as naivety. The biggest mistake they made was to confuse calmness with passivity. They failed to realize that real strength is not reacting impulsively to every provocation, but having the discipline to choose precisely when, how, and on what scale to respond to genuine threats. Today, when young entrepreneurs come to me for advice on business or relationships, I always share the same reflection: never underestimate someone who has more to lose than you think. And never confuse silence with ignorance, patience with weakness, or generosity with stupidity. The most satisfying justice was not seeing my traitors face legal consequences, but discovering an inner strength and capacity for strategy that even I did not fully know I had. If this story of transformation through adversity has touched you, if you believe that underestimating someone can be the biggest mistake of your life, subscribe to the Twist and Revenge channel to discover more inspiring stories of people who have turned their greatest betrayals into definitive victories, proving that true strength often reveals itself when we least expect it. The last time I heard anything about Derek, he was serving time in a federal prison in Texas, working in the prison library for $2 an hour, writing letters to anyone who would listen to his theories about systemic injustice. Jennifer was released on parole 2 months ago and is living with her parents in a small town in Oregon, working as a clerk at a local department store and participating in a social reintegration program. According to Amanda, she spends some of her free time volunteering at a shelter for women who are victims of domestic violence, helping other women recognize signs of emotional and financial manipulation. Perhaps this is her way of seeking some kind of personal redemption. I sincerely hope it is. Me? Well, I'm living exactly the life I've always wanted to live. It just took a devastating betrayal and 2 years of elaborate performance to discover who I really was beneath all the expectations, assumptions, and limitations I had accepted as truth. The best revenge, I've discovered, isn't destroying those who tried to destroy us. It's becoming so authentically powerful that their betrayal becomes irrelevant to our happiness.